this video is for our 2nd through 4th grade team for September week 2. All month long, we are focusing on the virtue of trust, putting your confidence in someone you can depend on. And our memory verse for the month is trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Well, we are adding on to our timeline. I've hung a timeline in each of your rooms that we will add on to each week. So week 1, we talked about how the theme of the Bible is love God, love others. Then we moved on to creation, the story of Adam and Eve and the fall and sin, God choosing Abram for his plan to create his own nation of people. And then last week we learned about how Abraham and Sarah had to wait to have Isaac. Well, this week we are moving on to the story of Isaac. Sorry, let me get out the paper that shows Isaac's wells. So this is what we are talking about this week. Not as well known of a story. So here's what this week is all about. It says, next we discover Isaac venturing out on his own. In Genesis 26, we find out that Isaac moved to a region where he reclaimed the wells that belonged to his father Abraham. For years, no one had cared about the wells until someone reopened them. Then everyone started fighting over them. Instead of fighting, Isaac showed that he trusts God and decided to give away the wells to make peace. Isaac walked away from what was rightfully his. God continued to show faithfulness to Isaac, and eventually the people saw that God had Isaac's back, and they backed away and left Isaac in peace. So our bottom line, trust God no matter what. When we read through the stories found in the Bible, we see how the writers experienced God as faithful throughout all sorts of circumstances. And we pray this simple truth can be a continual reminder to kids that God's faithfulness continues today. We can trust God no matter what. Even if we're not quite sure what's happening in our lives, we can trust God to help us through it. So that is what our story is all about this week. Jumping into our leader guide, we would love for you to join us at 8:20 and 10:20 in the garage room for coffee and donuts and most importantly, prayer. Then just make sure that you are to your small group area by 8:30 and 10:30 so that you're ready to roll when kids come in at 8:40 and 10:40. On your leader guide, I have just a little note for you kind of recapping what we're talking about this week and thanking you for serving. When kids start to come in, they can play with toys on the carpet or they can also do the coloring page, which this week has a well on it, and it might be a good visual because all kids might not know exactly what a well is. So you might need to explain that to kids as they're coloring and talk about what they were used for. Then just make sure that you know all your kids' names and introduce yourselves to them as they're coming in. Then when service starts at 9 and 11, you have a little intro game that you can do. I have a dice on each of your cart, and depending on what number the kids roll, they will walk the tightrope a certain way, and they'll answer a get-to-know-you question. So for example, if they roll a 1, they'll walk the tightrope with their eyes closed and tell you what their favorite thing to eat is. Then at 10 after, 9, 10, and 11:10, you will head across the hall to large group to hear the story of Isaac and his wells. When you get back from large group, while kids are eating their snack, you're going to give them their trust journal. So some kids started a trust journal last week. Those will still be on your carts. Hopefully they have their name on it. If kids weren't here last week, we have blank ones on each cart too. And they can continue to decorate them, color the front page. And they're also going to fill out ticket number 2. Teach me to trust you to, and they're going to fill that in. So over here it says, ask kids to reflect on one thing that they're having a hard time trusting God for and write it in number 2. So you could brainstorm some things that are hard to trust God for. So trusting God to help you make friends, trusting God to help you be kind to your family, trusting God to help you do well at something that you're practicing. So they're going to fill that in. And when they're finished, you're going to invite kids to take a few minutes to pray by reading ticket number 2 silently and encouraging them to add anything else that they want to pray about. So just giving kids a minute to just sit quietly and pray, teaching them that skill. Then just make sure that their names are on their journals and keep them in your cart for next week. And then you can close down in prayer with something like the following. Then after you wrap up your prayer time for memory verse, you're going to show kids how to look up the memory verse. So show kids where to find the book of Proverbs in the table of contents. Then the big 3 for chapter 3, the little 5 for verse 5. And then you can practice the memory verse with motions. So trust in the Lord. They're going to point up with all your heart. Circle your arms around and finish with your hands over your heart. Do not depend. Make an X in front of you on your own understanding. Point to your head. And then if you'd like to do a little memory verse game, you're just going to have kids spread apart, just like an arm's width apart. And you've got a balloon on your cart, and you're going to have kids just softly pass the balloon around the circle. And each kid will say one word of the memory verse as they pass the balloon around the circle. Then the last little activity is called the well runner. So what you're going to do, I don't have it set up to show you, but I just wanted to get the video made. So you're going to have a bucket on one end and then two smaller buckets on the other end. So you're going to divide your group into two teams, and you're going to give the starting player on each team a cup. And then you're going to ask one of the review questions. So I've got the review question page. It'll be right behind your leader guide on your cart. You're going to ask the first question from the review page, and then I've got a buzzer on your cart also. The team that buzzes in first has a chance to answer first, and if they miss, the other team can steal. So whichever team answers correctly gets to fill their cup and walk forwards to the empty buckets. The team that misses gets to fill their cup and walk backwards to the bucket. If they both miss the question, then they both walk backwards. And then they'll run their cup back to the beginning and start for the next pair. So I'm thinking in the buckets I might have rubber mulch because they're going to be like digging out a well. But I might also have shredded paper. I'm not sure, so we'll see. So